Hello and welcome back to the Big Stage, brought to you by Betting Expert. I'm Joe Ryan, and by the end of this video we're going to give you our best bets and predictions for game week 5 of the Premier League. And once again joining me is broadcaster Rory Jennings. Rory, I've seen you've had a bit of luck on the poker tables lately. How are you getting on?
Yeah, really well. Feeling very good about that win. Yeah, it feels a little bit of time has passed since then. A few things have happened. A lot of football's been played, but yes, basking in the glory of winning the poker with the true Geordie.
And of course, Chelsea started off winning ways their defence of the Champions League title. How did you rate that performance? I mean, how buzzing are you as a Chelsea fan right now?
Joe, I think our performance in Europe was actually a statement performance. I think it was brilliant. And the reason I think it's so good and the reason why I think people should take it so seriously is because we were fairly average. We weren't very good, and yet we won. And that is a threat to everyone else. When you play badly and you win, when you probably don't deserve a victory, when it could have been even worse than a draw, and Romelu Lukaku does exactly what he's supposed to do. We bought him to do exactly that, to drag Chelsea to 3 points that they otherwise wouldn't deserve. Zenit were fantastic. I thought the Brazilian boys, especially who played for Zenit, were superb. But we grinded a result out, and you know what it's like when you're winning and everything's going your way and you're 4-0 up. That's not when you judge a team. It's how do they get on in a game where they probably don't deserve to win. And the fact that Chelsea won that, it's a statement to the Champions League. The aim of retaining it and becoming the first English club to retain the Champions League in its current format is well and truly on.
I mean, for you as a fan though, where does the priority sit? Is it the European Cup for you, or do you want to see them lift the Premier League title again?
It's an interesting debate, isn't it? Because look, if you ask me this question, 99% of the time, the answer is the Premier League. The Premier League is what it's all about. The Premier League is the be all and end all. The Premier League is the bread and butter, and the buzz of winning the Premier League is truly, truly incomparable. It changes a little bit when you've won it, though, because retaining it, you enter a new phase, you enter a new conversation, and the potential of retaining it is something that just feels so good. And for me, as a Chelsea fan, at one point, it was about accruing silverware because, for practically the first over the first decade of my life, Chelsea didn't get anywhere near silverware. So the fact that it took nearly 2 decades to get anywhere meant that trophy accumulation was all that we wanted. Whereas now you start thinking about making history and leaving your name in the history books. And the fact that Chelsea could become the first English club to retain it in its current format. I'm not doing a disservice to Liverpool or Forest. I'm fully aware of the achievements, but in its current format, no English club has managed to retain it. So the dream of lifting it in St. Petersburg to become the first English club to retain it, I think if you gave me the option, I think I'd just about choose that.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, but looking ahead to this weekend as well, how much do you think the European action will actually have an effect, like on, say, the Champions League clubs and also Europa League as well? We're recording this on Thursday night. Of course, West Ham, Leicester in European action. I mean, how much will that take it out of them going into the Premier League action at the weekend, do you think?
Massively in general. I always think that if you've played in Europe, you're less likely to accrue to 3 points on a weekend. You are less likely to win 3 points if you've played in Europe. I think that a lot of teams go up against, if you've played in Europe, you can play a team that under normal circumstances you would beat. But if you've played a difficult game in Europe, potentially away from home, long journey, it does have an impact. This early in the season, I don't necessarily think that we will be seeing that. So, for example, Chelsea, the season is brand new. Chelsea played at home against Zenit. I don't think that should have any lasting repercussions. We're also playing against the side that have their own European issues, which is the way you want it. But when we are early December, for example, Chelsea in early December go away to St. Petersburg. All being well, we'll already be through by then and we'll be able to juggle accordingly. But say we're not. Say we go to Zenit and we have to win. I would say that whoever we play, I'm not even sure who it is off the top of my head, but whoever we play that weekend would have a fairly good shot of taking some points off us.
Well, of course, we'll be, yeah, like you say, I mean, it's early days in the season. We're going to have a bit more stats and a little bit more data to go off as well later on in the season. But speaking of data, let's take a quick look back at the results from last week. So we do have an ongoing picks competition here on the big stage, which I am now winning, 28 to 21, Rory. So not amazing so far, but not bad either. I mean, you got more than half of the predictions right so far, but let's see if we can turn that around this week going into this week's games. So our quick fire predictions, we're going to look at, well, the games in focus to start us off with. We're going to look at Wolves, Brentford, and also Villa, Everton, and Spurs, Chelsea. But to start off with, we've got some predictions on some other games throughout the week. So, of course, Game Week 5 kicks off on Friday night with Newcastle Leeds. Now, Rory, your perspective on a Friday night kickoff. Don't think Chelsea are involved in too many of them, but how do you like a Friday night Premier League game?
Well, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think that the buzz that you get going to football on a Friday night is special, and the atmospheres always feel raucous. It always feels like there's an extra little bit of tension, little bit of enjoyment, little bit of enthusiasm in the air. It does seem to add to it, and I think that football stadiums in the UK, speaking exclusively to the UK here, I think that football stadiums have become overly sanitized, overly sterile, and at times, to be frank, boring. And anything that can be done to liven them up, I'm in favour of. And I think Friday night has a big impact. And in the same way that I think Sunday mornings, those 12 noon kickoffs or even the 12:45s on a Saturday, I think they are detrimental to the atmosphere of a stadium. So Friday night kickoffs, I'm fully in favour of.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking of atmosphere, I mean, St. James's Park, I'm sure you've been there as well. What a great atmosphere it can be when it is rocking. They're under pressure at the moment, though. I did actually tip Steve Bruce as being the value bet for the sack race as well. I mean, how much trouble do you think Newcastle are in, especially going into this fixture against Leeds?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because while I think they are not good, and while I think that Steve Bruce is completely out of his depth, and while I think the club won't get anywhere until they get rid of Bruce, I think all of the above is true, and yet I don't think he's under any sort of threat to lose his job, because the ambitions of the club aren't what they should be. The ambitions of Mike Ashley don't tally with the ambitions of the supporters. And when you think of the scale of the club, and when you think about the ambitions of the club, it's chalk and cheese. So while I agree with you that Steve Bruce should be under huge amounts of pressure and has actually already proved that he is incapable of leading that club in the way that they need to be led, I think that he's probably one of the most secure in his jobs out there, because ultimately anything above 17th is success, and I think that he will achieve that.
I think that's fair enough. Looking at the betting, though, he has come in from 9-1 into 6-1, so there is a little bit of pressure there. Mikel Arteta was the odds-on favourite. He's now around even money, so there is a bit of movement in that market already. But let's chat a little bit about Leeds. They've actually conceded just about similar amount of goals to Newcastle already. Not really firing up top. I mean, what's really going wrong for Leeds in your view, do you think?
I think it's a difficult one, because I didn't anticipate this. I made a bit of a mistake last season where I thought that Leeds were going to be in real trouble, and the fact that I got it so wrong last year, it meant that I kind of changed my approach. I just thought, maybe they can build on that. I thought that they would get the benefits of, the difficulty that comes with second season. I thought that they would get the benefit of the first season in the second season. The home support, the raucous home support and things like that. I thought that they would get all of that. But it's really been flat. And the performances that I've seen of them, I watched Manchester United completely dismantle them. Yeah. And Bielsa clearly didn't learn from his previous experience going to Old Trafford. I watched the game against Everton at home where I thought they would win. I thought that game was perfectly set up for them to win. It was conducive to Leeds United accruing the 3 points. And they were lucky to get a draw. Damari Gray was ripping them apart. I think if you look at the personnel, they're fairly average in certain positions. I mean, Liam Cooper is totally out of his depth in the Premier League, for example. Liverpool made light work of them, totally light work of them. And unless they get some points on the board very quickly, they are in trouble, big trouble. Like, they are going to be fighting for relegation unless they will start winning. So this game against Newcastle, it feels like a little bit of a 6-pointer.
Already, yeah, we've got a couple of games that could be labelled that as well further on in the show. But the community bet for this one is actually to look at under 3 goals. That comes from our tipster Greens, who is up over 8,000 units of profit on Betting Expert, so he certainly knows his stuff. And I mean, if you look at the firepower, they just haven't been firing either side. So it looks like we should be in for a low-scoring game, despite there being hopefully a good atmosphere on Friday night. Now let's move on to the next game that potentially you could also say is a 6-pointer as well. Norwich against Watford at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Now here our community tip is actually on Watford plus quarter of a goal on the Asian handicap. So we're giving Watford a slight edge in this one. But Rory, is this a must-win for both sides already at this point in the season?
I think it's a must-win Norwich. I think the fact that Watford are off the mark already puts a bit there's less pressure on them. That result that they got against Villa, wasn't it, where they beat Villa 3-2? I think that's probably given them a little bit of a cushion. Whereas Norwich, it's looking like it could be as bad as it could possibly be. I mean, they even lost to Arsenal, which is something to really trouble them. And unless they get some points on the board quickly, I think they're down. I don't think there's too much conjecture to be had there. But you start thinking, how bad could it be? And then you start thinking Derby County, Swindon. Are they going to win any games? Is it going to be Christmas? How many points are they going to have at that point? So they need, the longer that this goes, the longer that Norwich go without any points on the board, the longer it's likely to go. So whatever happens, Norwich can't get B. I don't necessarily think it's a 6-pointer, but Norwich need to break this run that they're on of just getting walloped every week. And for Watford, this is an opportunity. This is a gift. I also think Watford will go down. So I think that this is a little bit... we're bigging it up, but I think both teams are doomed, to be honest. But for Watford to have any chance of survival, they need to take the maximum points here. For Norwich, I think it's just about ending this run that they're on, because they are currently in line to be the worst Premier League team ever.
Yeah, well, I'm going to back Norwich. I think the home advantage could be key. I just think that they should be able to get on the board. I know our community and I know yourself, you're going for Watford, but let's see who comes out on top. But let's move on to the next game. We mentioned Arsenal in that little segment as well. We're going to Burnley against Arsenal. Now here, our best bet is actually on Burnley or the draw. That comes from one of our top tipsters as well. Now Burnley have won or drawn their past 3 against Arsenal. So Rory, you've already hinted at Arsenal being perhaps an easier fixture than they have been in the past. How do you see this match going?
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, what is going on? Every time that we have a conversation about Arsenal, Joe, I just can't quite understand it. Like, I'm of an era and from a part of London that is very Arsenal heavy. And the fact that we are talking about Arsenal in these terms, it just feels like 2 separate clubs, to the club that I grew up with, to the club that is in existence now. It's truly amazing. And I've got to be totally frank, I am loving it. It's an amazing thing. Look, Burnley could do it. As you say, they've done it before. Sean Dyche has just got a new deal, so he'll be buoyant off the back of that. But I also think that the Arsenal that we've seen up until this point doesn't necessarily tell the full story. Those 3 defeats in a row, while bad, each could be analysed in a vacuum and explained. Brentford, the perfect storm. Chelsea, European champions. Manchester City, champions. And then they got the win. As soon as they came up against someone that, in theory, they should win, because the Brentford one was new stadium, loads of, all of the reasons around that. So as soon as they got a game at home that they should win, they won. So I think this is the litmus test, I think, for Arsenal. If Arsenal lose or draw against Burnley, they are back to square one. They take maximum points and they're sitting on 6 points out of 5 games. They'll go into the North London derby feeling fairly confident, with the potential of flipping it, with the potential of going above Tottenham in that game. So it's early to make too many judgments. I think we can we will know who Arteta is and who Arsenal are when the final whistle blows against Tottenham. If Arsenal are sitting on 9 points after that Tottenham game, I think everything's fine. Anything sub 9, dramas.
Exactly. We love a bit of drama as well on this show, but I'm going for an Arsenal win. I think you're going for that as well. I feel like they should be too strong for this Burnley side, but yeah, let's see how that goes. And now we're going to move on to our first feature game of the show, Wolves against Brentford. So we do want a little bit of entertainment when we watch football, and these 2 sides basically haven't produced a lot in terms of goals. lately. I think there's only been 10 goals in matches involving Brentford and Wolves in total so far this season. So we're perhaps expecting a bit of a low-scoring affair when these two meet at Molineux. Wolves, of course, last time out did get that first win on the board, 2-0. But Rory, how do you see this one shaping up? Do you expect it to be a dull affair or perhaps a bit more entertainment?
I feel like it might be quite lively. I mean, Brentford have a terrible record going to Molineux, so that doesn't suit. But when you look at Wolves, I mean, your stats there tell the story, of course, but it isn't through a lack of trying. Like they are having I think they're having 17 shots a game.
Yeah.
They just can't make it count. They just can't get anything to stick. They can't make it work. But 17 shots a game is an awful lot, and the lack of conversion is troubling. And the fact that Pedro Neto is out, it doesn't bode well. But I feel like I am a bit of a non-conformist here because everyone I listen to, regardless of where these conversations happen, they all seem to rate Brentford, and they seem to think Brentford could survive, and they seem to think that this strategy of theirs really works. I don't at all. I don't think they're very good, and I think that they will go down probably with a whimper. You know, I feel like they've actually had their moment in the sun already with that Friday night game against Arsenal. So I feel like this one could be a little bit more cut and thrust, but ultimately I can't see any result aside from a Wolves win.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board with that 100%. I mean, Raul Jimenez as well should be due a goal for sure. I mean, he's had 13 shots on target, the most in the Premier League without scoring a goal. I'm not sure about how his confidence has been affected, obviously, since the injury. He was out for a long time, but I mean, he's playing, taking shots, so surely his time will come. Also, a stat to back up your thoughts on Brentford as well. Only Norwich have had fewer shots on target in the Premier League so far this season. Brentford have had 9, Norwich 8. So they're not really showing much in terms of creativity. Wolves are. So I feel like this should be a comfortable Wolves win as well. And our suggested bet for our bet builder comes from, we have both teams to score no. So basically that would be a result if either team keep a clean sheet. Of course, with Brentford not being so good at creating chances, that one should be a pretty easy one. Also under 3 goals. So again, perhaps a low scoring affair, but Wolves ultimately to get the win. That's available at odds of 3.40 at Bet365. But Rory, your prediction for this one, you think it should be a pretty easy win for Wolves, right?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be too much in it. Wolves aren't the type of team to do that. They're not. I don't anticipate Wolves smashing them 4-0. I think that they could thrash them 1-0.
Love a 1-0 thrashing now and again. But yeah, let's move on to our next game. We're going to talk about. We're going to look at Man City against Southampton. So obviously Man City performed pretty well in the Champions League, involved in an absolute thriller, 6-3 against Leipzig in midweek. I mean, what did you make of that performance from Man City? I don't know if you've had the chance to actually watch it back in full, but obviously they're outscoring goals, but perhaps a little bit leaky at the back. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I did watch it. I watched. We kind of had them all on. I was working. We had them all on, which was great. And obviously that was the one that caught your eye. I don't think there's anything too surprising with that result. I just think that they score goals for fun, but they made a few changes and they aren't quite as strong at the back as they would be if they played their first string. So it was sort of what you would expect, but it's very intimidating. I think if you are scoring goals like that, if you are scoring for fun, and everybody's saying that the deficiency in their side is not having a striker. So the problem, the way that you beat City, the reason that the Premier League title is wide open is because they never managed to succeed with their pursuit of Harry Kane. They just scored 6 in Europe.
Exactly.
Against a good side. So you pity Southampton already, don't you? You are already thinking how, like, is this going to be where Hassan Hutel could, like, breaks his own record and concedes 10? Is it going to be one of those?
It could well be, yeah. I mean, the main question I had looking at this one was just by how many will City win? I think Southampton were 20-1 at one point to win in 90 minutes, so obviously that's not going to happen. Our suggested bet from the community is for Man City to win to 0, and I feel like that is pretty much the best value bet you can get on this game. Otherwise, yeah, it's just basically pick them. How many goals are City going to score? When will they kind of stop scoring? But yeah, we'll move on to the next game. We're going to look at Liverpool against Crystal Palace. Now, looking at the betting odds as well, this looks like pretty similar, to be honest. Palace not given much of a chance on this one. Our community bet is for there to be under 3.5 goals. But Rory, how do you see that game going again? What did you make of Liverpool's performance coming from behind against AC Milan? How much will that take out of them going into this game?
I don't think we'll take anything out of them just yet. I think cumulatively over the season, games like that are very tough. But at the moment, it should just be inspiring. When they play Palace, I don't think that they will have too much of an effect. It will be interesting to see how Palace reacts because Palace had a huge result last week, so they will either rest on their laurels and think that, they've taken 3 points in a game where most people would have thought that they wouldn't, or do they use that as a springboard to go again, to try and upset the odds again? I'm inclined to think that Liverpool will win this one fairly easily, fairly convincingly, because I think that when you win in Europe in the way that they did, they were losing at home to a club like AC Milan, and also people seem to think, AC Milan they were the pot four. They're meant to be the whipping boys of the group. They aren't quite the team that some people think they are. I'm not part of that brigade at all. It's AC Milan. It is a juggernaut of European football, and the kit and the badge and the fans and Maldini in the stands alone shows you quite how significant the challenge posed by that team would be. And also, when you look at the players playing, they're really good players. Tomori, Rebic, Giroud coming on. It's a good team. So I think it's a very good result from Liverpool, but I don't anticipate there being any hangover from them. I think they will make light work of Palace. I think Liverpool score for fun against them. I'm going to go 3-0 Liverpool.
Yeah, I'm of a similar mindset, to be honest. I feel like it should be pretty much a walkover, as the odds suggest. So really not much more to talk about with that game. We're going to move on to our next feature game, looking at another team on Merseyside coming up against my beloved Aston Villa. So the late kickoff on Saturday does see Aston Villa host Everton. Now, I'm trying to figure out exactly what is going on with Villa in terms of the defence. I'm not sure yet if Martinez is going to be available, if Buendia's back as well. It's still a little bit up in the air. But I do fancy Villa's chances. But Rory, I mean, how do you see this one going? How do you see Villa's start so far compared to Everton's?
I can't believe it, really. I think that Everton will win this game, and that is not something I anticipated saying a few weeks ago. I thought that club was going to be really in trouble. I thought that Benitez coming in, the disparity between the fans and the club would never be greater. Benitez as Everton manager, it still feels weird to even say that, but we have to just acknowledge what he's done. It is truly brilliant, and it's been like that from the second the season started. I remember they played Brighton early, and I was thinking that could be a potential slip up. They got that. They got that in the bag, no problems. They obviously went to Leeds, got the result there, which was also very impressive. And then Burnley, you thought, okay, a night game against Burnley when the pressure's on, because there was talk, can Everton go joint top of the league? Everyone else that they were competing with that weekend had won, so the pressure's really on them. And the Everton that we know, the Everton that haven't won a trophy since Paul Rideout scored in 1995, bottle that game. It didn't go their way. They were struggling at points in the game. Burnley were roughing them up. They went a goal down fairly late in the game to go a goal down. First game didn't come till about an hour. They went a goal down, and then bang, they were back. They were firing. The quality of goals was impressive. The signings, both on the score sheet. Townsend and Gray, both on the score sheet. And all of a sudden, I think maybe we have to, maybe not just yet, but I'd say in a week or two when we're talking, Joe, maybe we have to redefine who Everton are this season, because I didn't anticipate this. And sorry to say this, because I know that you're a diehard Villa fan. I think they're going to win. I think Everton are going to win fairly convincingly.
I mean, I've got a stat for you as well, by the way. Everton away from home lost just 2 in their last 17, and that was against Chelsea and Man City. So, I mean, away from home as well, away from Goodison, they're still doing amazing. And I can't believe how I think we wrote off those 2 transfers as well, like Townsend and Gray. They weren't exactly inspirational, but what a performance they put in against Burnley. On the flip side,
do you think Villa can get anything?
A shred of hope. This is a shred of hope for me, is that Danny Ings has actually scored for every club he's played against Everton. And it could be that his 4th club against Everton, he could go and do that. He scored 5 goals against them in the Premier League as well. So I'm hoping that trend continues. He finds a way through. But I'm actually going to go kind of head over heart a little bit and predict a draw in this one. I still can't bring myself to tip Everton. So yeah, I'll go for the draw in this one. Joe. That's it.
Your stats affected me. Your Danny Ings stats affected me. I'm going to go draw. I just this bubble's got to pop, and I rate Danny Ings so highly. You've done well there.
That's
Your
it.
Villa, you've led the charge for Villa well. I'm going to go draw.
Yeah, I think we actually did write down our score predictions as well. We've both gone for a 1-1 draw in this one. So I'll take that as a Villa fan as well. With the run that Everton are on, like I mentioned, the away from home stats pretty formidable right now. So yeah, we'll go for a draw as our best bet in this one. We do also have a bet builder for this from Bet365. So we'll look at both teams to score. We'll go for yes on that one. Danny Ings to score at any time and the draw in 90 minutes. That's available at 9-1 if you want to follow that advice. And now we're going to move on to Sunday's game, or Sunday's games rather, starting off with Brighton against Leicester. Now, Rory, how do you see this one going? I know Brighton, they've actually turned things around a little bit. They're starting to score some goals compared to last season and their XG exploits as well. But Leicester, of course, with Europa League action as well, could be a distraction for the Premier League, right?
Yeah, they're playing Napoli, aren't they? That's huge, isn't it? Leicester versus Napoli. What a game that'll be. I think Leicester will win. I think Leicester are good enough. I think the firepower of Leicester. When you think about the players at Leicester's disposal who are genuine match winners, I think there will be enough from them to win this game. And I think they need to win it because it hasn't been too convincing from them so far. Obviously, they beat Wolves, but that could have gone either way. They then got trounced by West Ham. I understand, I know the red card and whatever, but they still got trounced by West Ham. They then played. It was Man City last week, wasn't it? And although it only finished 1-0, it could have been. At points it could have been a cricket score. And I think the only time that they've really looked convincing was against Norwich. And when I say convincing, I think it finished 2-1. So
Yeah.
it hasn't been quite smooth sailing as Brendan Rodgers would have liked. So I actually think off the back of what happened against Man City, where they were totally outplayed, I think they need this win, and I think they'll get it as well. I think ultimately Leicester are just going to be that bit too strong for Brighton, and Brighton won't have enough to trouble them. But it'll be tight. I'm going to go Leicester to win 2-1.
Yeah, I'm on a similar path as well. We spoke last week about kind of ignoring the table as well at this stage. It maybe is a bit too early to read much into that. Brighton are sitting pretty high, but if you look back at the fixtures they've played, maybe games that you would expect them to actually go and get a result, and they've not been amazing in those games either. So yeah, I'm siding with Leicester for this one. Next game we're going to look at on Sunday is West Ham against Man United. Our community top bet here is simply for Man United to get the win in 90 minutes. Available at odds of 1.85 with Unibet. Rory, let's chat about United. Their performance in Europe, obviously massive disappointment. What was Jesse Lingard doing?
Do you know, that result was so bad. It was so bad because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did everything wrong. Look, he was put under pressure. But you can almost say that the pressure was self-inflicted because he shouldn't have started Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka's been in terrible form of late, terrible form all season, and has never been dropped. So if you're going to play and persist with a player who has been so out of form, don't be surprised when he does something that surmises being out of form. He's got himself sent off in a fairly foolish way. So that was one thing that I thought he got wrong. But then from that moment, I just think that he got it wrong. The substitutions were baffling, totally baffling. I have no idea why he's bringing Martial on when he did. They needed it to be solid in midfield, and you're taking a midfielder off for a striker when you're away from home in Europe, trying to preserve a 1-1 draw. And I just think it was such a bad performance from Solskjaer. Individually, it was bad as well. I think Varane could have done better for that goal. Jesse Lingard obviously could have done better for his goal. You can almost say Harry Maguire was also caught under the ball at times. So there is actually nothing surprising about that. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not a good enough manager to manage Manchester United. Manchester United as a club demand excellence. That's who they are. That's who they've been. And whatever you think, whether you think Solskjaer's done a good job, whether he's steadied the ship, whether he's helped close the chasm between fans and the club, that's all up for debate. But is he the best manager that they could get? The answer is absolutely not. So there's nothing too surprising about that loss to Young Boys. But wasn't it glorious? And I think it could have a bit of a hangover. Obviously, West Ham are in Europe at the moment. I've been watching videos of their fans having a good time in Croatia. So I think that this one could be a bit of a stalemate. I anticipate a draw.
Okay.
What do you
I
think?
That's fair enough. Yeah, I'm going with Ronaldo again to just get on the score sheet. He seems no matter what, if I write him off or not, if I praise him, he scores basically every time. So yeah, I expect Ronaldo will be a really big contributor in this game. And also the fact that Antonio will be missing for West Ham, I feel like that is massive on their behalf as well. So I'm going to go for United win in this one. Actually, United win to 0 as well. But let's move on to our last game of the weekend. I know, Rory, you're going to have a lot to talk about in this one. Spurs against Chelsea. So, Rory, I mean, take us away. I mean, what is there to be scared of as a Chelsea fan when you're coming up against Spurs right now?
Everything, absolutely everything. This is the worst game of the season because the jeopardy, the nerves, the trepidation, all not because I'm scared of Tottenham, not because of the team, but just, if it goes wrong, if they happen to turn us over, I'm so upset. Like, this is the fixture. For a Chelsea fan, or for most Chelsea fans, certainly Chelsea fans I know, this is the game. This is when the fixtures come out. When do we go to Tottenham away? That is the first thing that we're looking for. And I really don't want it to go wrong because it would be fantastic to beat them. We've got a really proud record at White Hart Lane. We always have. Like, we didn't lose at White Hart Lane for years and years. We had such a proud record there, all pre-Abramovich as well. We've got, it was something that went on for absolutely ages. And I think that we can get a result. I think that we should, but they also have it in them to elevate their game against us. So I am slightly nervous. But, I'm old enough to remember a period when Chelsea would refer to White Hart Lane as 3-point lane. So I believe that we will have enough to overcome what they can offer.
Honestly, I feel like you're just setting yourself up a little bit for like a cushion if anything goes wrong. I don't think anything is going to go wrong in this. I feel like Spurs just don't have any kind of firepower at all. It seems like Harry Kane's completely off the boil. When you watch back the game against Palace as well, they didn't really have anything. Obviously, they had the man sent off as well, I know, but yeah, they're pretty lackluster there. Interesting stat as well with Harry Kane. He's only scored once in his last 8 Premier League games against Chelsea. So yeah, just confirms that he's not really much of a threat.
I know that you're right. You are totally right, Joe. And but there are some games, and anyone who's invested in a club will definitely feel this way. Sometimes when there's logically we would win, but emotionally the threat of losing is so powerful that you can't quite enjoy your position as favourites, because even if you were 10-1 favourites, which obviously we're not, but even if you were 10-1 favourites, the one is still resonating, and it still troubles us. Like, I will be heartbroken if we lose this, more so than any other game this season. This is the game that I'm desperate not to lose, and it's, if I could choose, this is the game where I'd like to make a statement. This is the game where I'd like Chelsea to go for the jugular and really, really put Tottenham to the sword. Like, when I was a kid, I went to White Hart Lane. We beat them 6-1. Torre Andre Flo scored a hat-trick, and I was at that game. And like, we've got a plaque in London. They do this thing where they put a blue plaque up where famous events have happened around London. So you'll go past, this is where the Beatles played their last recording, and you'll go past, this is where Keats wrote some certain poetry. This is where, and it's an iconic thing in London. Chelsea fans had a plaque made. This is where Torre Andre Flo scored a hat-trick, and had it engraved into the Tottenham stadium. So it is a ground, the rivalry is strong. It's a ground that's been kind to us over the years, but there has also been a couple of moments. I remember being at White Hart Lane on a New Year's Day when Harry Kane scored a hat-trick. We lost 5-3. We did win the league that year, and we did beat them in the cup final, the League Cup final. But it troubles me. But yes, I am with you. Logically, Chelsea should win. And I'm going to go with a 2-0 win. Please let that happen.
I mean, you look at other London derbies as well. Chelsea have won their last 5 in a row, I think it is. So it could be the first time they've won 6 in a row. So let's say, for now, I think London is blue. But Rory, thanks a lot for coming on to the big stage. Good luck for the weekend. Hope you enjoy it. Good luck with your predictions as well. We'll be back next week to see how you get on.
Thanks, Joe. See you, everyone.
Great stuff. And of course, if you want to follow along with our predictions, you can head on over to bettingexpert.com. My profile and Rory's profile are linked below, so you can see how we're doing in terms of our individual bets. But for now, thanks a lot for watching. And of course, if you do place a bet, as always, please do gamble responsibly.